A concerning final injury report. Who could be out for the Rams? What is the plan for Tutu Atwell? And we are taking a way early look at the 2026 draft. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do me a huge favor. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and if you want to support every episode, hit the like button and drop a comment down below. Podcast listeners, write us a review. We'll read it live on the show. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. I've covered LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 sports, Bleacher Report, Chat Sports, Dodgers Nation, Locked On, and now I'm also doing the LA Sports Report, which is through Newsweek. Got lots of Rams content over there, doing live breakdowns, things like that, interviews. Travis Rogers out today, but got a jam-packed show. We're talking a little bit about the 2026 draft. Just a little fun. Get you ready. Never too early. We've covered every single angle of this Cardinals game, so we'll do a little more key, some other thoughts on how to avoid upset loss, but some injuries that are worth talking about. Who's going to be in, who could be out, and what is the plan for Tutu Atwell. We'll talk more about that. But first, today's episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Okay, so what are those injuries that I mentioned at the top of the show? So first, Davante Adams, he's been dealing with a hamstring injury, and he talked about it yesterday, and he said, quote, no, it sits different than the last one that he had. Because remember, he had the other one. This one's a little different. He said, no, it's different. It's a little in a different spot, but it's feeling good, though. He said, I'm feeling much better than what I anticipated. And honestly, I just want to be smart about it. I felt it early in the game last week and was able to get through the game just fine. I just want to manage it. We have a title race coming up, and here you just want to be able to make sure you're available. So that definitely makes you feel good. It's not something serious, but it does remind you that he is not the youngest receiver. He's north of 30. He's played a lot of football, and he understands it himself, that he wants to be ready for this stretch run, that he wants to make sure that there's nothing lingering, because the most important football for the Rams is still to be played. And he's been extremely productive. 14 touchdowns this season. 11 of those have come in the last 6 games. He scored 6 straight and 9 of 12 this season. So he scored touchdowns in the last 6 games. The odds of him getting in the end zone, again, are very high the way they utilize him, all the targets in the red zone that he's been getting near the goal line. So, hey, this is a reminder that it's very important to make sure that if there's anything, if the check engine light is anywhere close to being on for Davante Adams, you need to make sure you proceed with caution. Okay, other injuries that we got to get into. Darius Williams, he's listed as doubtful. The Rams cornerback was on the injury report on Friday, and we know he missed some time with the shoulder. Is he going to be in there? If he's not, we know Emmanuel Forbes had a down game last week. I think that it was more of a team thing. Yes, he did not make the plays we've seen him make this season, but Bryce Young had all the time in the world to throw, and I think that contributed to it. So I look for a bounce-back game for Emmanuel Forbes, especially when you consider the Cardinals have given him the 4th most sacks in the NFL. So I'm expecting big games from Jared Verse, Byron Young, Kobe Turner, Braden Fisk. That front for the Rams, the fearsome foursome 2.0, I think, is definitely going to have a much better showing for the Rams. And then you look at Ahkello Witherspoon, and what does that mean? Kobe Durant, what does that mean? So I think that they have the depth, certainly, especially against this team, and he's going to be doubtful. So we'll see if he ends up giving it a go. He's played better of late, But the good thing is the Rams have some reinforcements. Now, another one that is also a concern is Poona Ford. Poona Ford is also listed as questionable to play. He was limited with a calf injury on Friday, and that's something that is concerning not just for this game, but moving forward. One of the big differences with this Rams team is their success against the run this season. It's been a 9-day difference. You're not seeing those massive explosives like we saw last season. Saquon Barkley comes to mind, and their success against the better running backs in this league has been one of the reasons why they're one of the best defenses in the league. So Poona Ford dealing with that calf, another guy that, look, the Rams are in an interesting spot where you need to think about seeding, you need to prioritize winning, and all that is true. At the same token, if you have a bye in a top seed, but you don't have your Devontae Adamses and your Poona Fords, it really isn't going to matter anyway. So you got to have to tread lightly on that front. And look, this is a game that the Rams can win without Poona Ford, so we'll see if he's kept out. Now, another one, Kyren Williams, he was a full participant, and he had a little shoulder thing that, he had an ankle thing that he was dealing with. He was limited on Wednesday, limited on Thursday, a full participant on Friday. So Kyren Williams is good to go. The two questionables you have are Poona Ford, Tutu Atwell, and then the doubtful is Darius Williams. So as far as Tutu was healthy. He was a full participant at practice for the second straight week. But Sean McVay said the Rams are not expected to activate him off the IR. So earlier this week, Sean McVay said that he wasn't sure if he's going to be activated at all this season. So maybe he ends up on the IR for the rest of the year. Now, on the year, Tutu Atwell's caught just 4 passes for 163 yards. That's not going to get it done. And we know the catch he made against the Colts against A.D. Mitchell where he put a move on him, and it was his moment for sure. But it is concerning that Xavier Smith had more catches in one game last week than 3 compared to Tutu Atwell's 4, so 1 less for him on the season. So, look, the truth is, when you dive deeper into the Tutu Atwell conversation, and I'm not a Tutu Atwell basher. That's not what I'm here to do. It's not personal for me. I don't think that guys that are in the NFL really have anything to be ashamed of. You're already essentially beating all the odds from being in the NFL in the first place. But it's more on the Rams' end. Was this the right decision? Was this the best way to utilize $10 million essentially when you look at it? And Atwell was supposed to come back during their Week 13 matchup with the Panthers. The team website said it. Team reporter Stu Jackson said it. He was eligible to return. He was activated in that 21-day practice window, but he was not brought up to the active roster. And this was put out in the LA Daily News about the possibility of Tutu Atwell not being back for the rest of the season. It says, quote, "We haven't gone down that road yet, but there are a number of things like what we've talked about." This is a Sean McVay quote. "I have a lot of love for him and what he's done and how he's handled it. It's been a unique set of circumstances relative to the timing and figuring out of how you get 48 guys up and being able to balance that out relative to how many on offense, how many on defense, and your 3 specialists. That's not something that we've explored or really thought is a possibility, but you never know." So when you look at where they've been on the IR and the spots they have available, look, they can do it. I mean, the team can designate up to 8 players to come back in the regular season. If that team makes the playoffs, you get an additional 2. And the Rams have used just one of those spots, and it's been for Ahkello Witherspoon. And you're also going to use it on Tyler Higbee and Quinn Lake when they're ready to go and they're ready to return. So even if you're going to activate those guys with Rob Havenstein in the mix, you still have an additional 4 to 6 spots for the IR activation. So it's not like the Rams are out of options when it comes to spots available to activate him. So I think what it's coming down to is the fact that he just doesn't have a clear-cut role on this team. You're seeing more 12 personnel, more 13 personnel. Xavier Smith, I don't think can play his role better than Tutu Atwell, but Xavier Smith has got some targets. Xavier Smith has been able to get the football, play special teams, which is big. Jordan Whittington was getting more snaps than he was, even when Atwell was healthy. Jordan Whittington had 123 snaps to Tutu Atwell's 116 snaps. So he was still getting more snaps than him. So really, I think what it comes down to is this. They signed Tutu Atwell to that $10 million deal before they signed Devontae Adams. And I think you're never going to say that Tutu Atwell was the insurance policy if they didn't get an elite receiver. But Devontae Adams has really worked out. He has played his role well, and he's getting a lion's share of those targets, especially when they're in the end zone. Him and Puka Nacua are the drivers of the offense when it comes to the receiver. So the Rams still have some time to activate him from that 21-day practice window, but they're in absolutely no rush. There's no urgency to do so. If they don't bring him back by next week, he's going to be done for the season, and it will definitely be a move that's going to be questioned significantly. Really, I mean, why would you do that? Really, it hurts Tutu Atwell. It hurts, and the Rams. Look, I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Really, I mean, you don't have room for a 4.340 guy. I don't know. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting. I think for Tutu, if this is the end of the Tutu Atwell thing, and I know there's people out there, oh, Tutu's a bust. He should be a Walmart greeter. He should work at Walmart, right? And this and that. No, look, he deserves a spot in an offense that is going to utilize him, but clearly has not just earned his role on this team in their mind. But coming up next, we're going to continue to talk about this matchup with the Cardinals and some chatter, some fun chatter about the 2026 NFL Draft. That's coming up next, and it's going to get you excited. It's going to make you feel great to be a Ram. That's coming next on Locked On Rams. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. And FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as the guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. Looking over at FanDuel, the Rams, a 9.5-point favorite over the Cardinals. The line has jumped a little higher in favor of the Rams. So go over to FanDuel.com right now. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you hear podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Also, a big shout out to those everyday listeners out there watching and listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. Cannot thank you enough. You guys are what make this show go. Over 20,000 subscribers, trying to get to 30,000 by the time the Rams are in the Super Bowl. So tell your friends, tell your family, tell anyone that loves the Rams to get locked on to Locked On Rams. So definitely be sure to do that. But all right, here in our second segment, some more keys to a victory over the Arizona Cardinals. Get pressure on Jacoby Brissett. Get home. That has been one of the big differences in the last couple of weeks is when they get pressure, you're going to have success. When they don't, it's going to put the secondary in a tough spot. And when they struggle in that area, it exposes guys, or at least appears to expose guys like Emmanuel Forbes, but that's just because they're being put in a tough spot. But since week 6, Jacoby Brissett, he's received pressure at the third highest rate in the NFL. A negative 0.52 EPA per pass, a 68.2 passer rating. Now, when he doesn't have pressure, though, 12 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, an EPA of 0.37. So the difference between a good Jacoby Brissett and a bad Jacoby Brissett is, can you get home? Can you be disruptive? Can you get pressure? The Rams have to find a way to get pressure. Because when he doesn't, I mean, his average depth of target, 6.8 yards. I mean, that is right where that's Bryce Young territory. And that's the 9th lowest in the National Football League. So the Rams have to find a way to get to Jacoby Brissett. Second biggest key, you got to hold on to the football. You can't lose the turnover margin 3-0. The Rams just can't do what they did last week and expect it to not be a close game and put themselves in a spot where anything can happen in the last 5 minutes. You just don't want to do that. The Cardinals have 417 turnovers. It's the 8th most in the NFL. They have a +2 turnover differential, but that's just because the offense has been largely bad, especially when Kyler Murray was under center. But the defense has found a way to generate turnovers. They actually had a +4 turnover differential last week, and they still took the L. So you could go -3 like you did against the Panthers and win because of what's happened to the Cardinals lately, but don't put yourself in that spot. They forced the fewest punts per drive, but the 8th most turnovers per drive. So the Cardinals have shown the ability to do that. So you can't have another bad week for Matthew Stafford. Interceptions, fumbles, and one of those last week wasn't his fault. Goes off the helmet, and look, he's aggressive. He's going to try to go to his guys because he can make that throw. On the Puka one, that was a pick six. We saw, look, I mean, you're trying to force something in there. You got to find the underneath guy. But still, I look for a much better focused effort. You're back close to the West Coast, and you're coming off that loss, and you got a lot to play for. So I'm expecting a good showing from the Rams team as far as a early game intensity. Look, they had a 21-17 halftime lead. They should have won that game. I don't want to rehash it here. But the next big key we talked about yesterday, you got to stop McBride. You got to make sure that the Cardinals don't do damage coming from the slot. And there's only been 5 tight ends that have lined up in the slot more than McBride this season. And that's an area where you don't have Quinn Lake. He's on the IR. Hopefully he's back for the playoffs. But last week we saw the Panthers with Josh Wallace expose Kobe Durant at times in the slot. So win the slot. I mean, Durant on McBride, that's not a great matchup. I'm looking at guys like Jalen McCullough, guys like that possibly to put yourself there. So Josh Wallace exposed and Kobe Durant exposed a little bit. So that's not something you want to see. And I think Josh Wallace is a guy that you don't really talk about that much, and you understand that he's a guy that is a depth piece for the Rams. There's no doubt about it. But you got to put guys in those opportunities. You got to expect them to perform. And then another big one, Emmanuel Forbes bounce back game. Emmanuel Forbes, we need to get his confidence high again. We need to get Emmanuel Forbes back to where he was, where he had the highest PFF grade of anyone a few weeks ago after the Bucs game. And he's been good for most of the season. But where he struggles is when you're thrown up against physical receivers. Ted McMillan, A.J. Brown, Jalen Coker. He's got a smaller frame, got the longer arms. The good thing for the Rams is Marvin Harrison Jr. will not be playing, but you do have Michael Wilson. And Michael Wilson, 6'2", 213, and he plays with the level of physicality that could give Forbes some issues. 47 targets over the last couple of weeks. For the last 4 weeks, he's got 12 of 15 contested catch opportunities. So that's a matchup to look at too. The Rams can't put Forbes in these disadvantages. You got to put him in these situations where you're getting pressure, you're allowing him to make plays and optimize him. So that's definitely one that I'm keeping my eyes on. He's got to find a way to be more effective in those situations because he's not that lockdown guy against every receiver. So let's see what they can do. I believe in Emmanuel Forbes. I really do. And another thing you can also do is you can have a safety come in and provide some relief. You can put Akella Witherspoon in different spots as well. So that's another thing as well. But look, the thing that scares me, the only reason that they get a little worried about this one, and I did predict a 31-15 win for the Rams, so I'm not tipping that off because I said it on yesterday's show. But the Rams are 3-3 in one-score games this season. That's not a terrible record because it says you're 500 in games that go either way. Some teams are way less. Have way less success in those situations and fare worse. But the Cardinals, they're 3-9, but they've played 9 one-score games. They're 2-7 in those one-score games. So they've lost 5 games where they had a lead in the fourth quarter, and they're 24th in fourth quarter scoring. So they're a weird team. They throw the football a ton. You don't just have to. I mean, the run. They average over 25 yards per game. Right now, they're not really running the football, and it's really like a double trap game because it's a division. It's a game where you're a little. They have nothing to play for, but then it's like they have everything to play for. When you look at Gannon, could lose his job potentially. Brissett, he's trying to take advantage of that opportunity. So, just a recap. Get home on Jacoby Brissett. You cause pressure and you get multiple sacks and you cause turnovers, you have a really good chance to win this game. You give him time, you let him get a rhythm, you let him take advantage of some physical receivers on Emmanuel Forbes, and you force him to have another bad game, then you could be in for a close one in the fourth quarter. Second biggest one, don't turn the football over. A better game for Matthew Stafford. Third, bounce back from Emmanuel Forbes. 5, don't let McBride beat you. Don't let guys in the slot beat you. But I'm confident the Rams win this one. They have to win this one. Losing's not an option. You got to go in and beat the Cardinals. You want to finish with that 1 seed in the NFC. But coming up next, we are talking about the 2026 draft. It's the weekend. Let's have some fun. Because you know what? For a team that's contending for the Super Bowl, that is a trendy pick to win the Super Bowl, that has as good of a chance as anyone to win the Super Bowl, the Rams draft situation almost feels like they're a team that has tanked, and that's a great thing. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams. And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Okay, so let's have some fun. Let's talk about the draft. I love the draft. I live for the draft. And the Rams sitting at 9-3, could they get a top 10 pick? Yes, because the Falcons got fleeced by Les Snead in the 2025 draft. Trading out of the first round did the Rams. They gave their pick to the Falcons. They wanted James Pierce out of Tennessee. James Pierce has basically been a bust so far. And the Rams have put themselves in a position where you're going to get a pick towards the bottom of the first round. But because the Falcons are 4-8 heading into Week 14, they've lost 6 of their last 7 games. They have the 9th pick in the NFL draft. So right now, the Rams have a 73.3% chance to get a top 10 pick in the draft. Think about that. It's incredible stuff. A top 10 pick in the NFL draft. And you look at where they're at right now, you can take a quarterback, you could take a playmaker for Matthew Stafford, you could get another offensive tackle. There's all kinds of ways you could go. But the beautiful thing is that they're in a position where you got tons of assets. And I look at it as, let's see how this year goes. Let's see how this year plays out. And I think that when they get there, they're going to be in a much better spot from a clarity standpoint. And this will kind of determine what the 2026 season is going to be about as far as, hey, did you win the Super Bowl and Matthew Stafford won MVP and Super Bowl MVP and wants to ride on the sunset? Or is he still so good he wants to continue his career? There's all these different options. Now, let's look at where the mock drafts are at right now as far as the top 10. And right now, you've got the Tennessee Titans selecting edge rusher out of Ohio State, the Ohio State University, Arvell Reese. Reese is a freak. 6'4", 243. He's got speed, high IQ. They're not going to be dipping into the number 1 spot, but let's just keep going with this thing. Number 2, the Giants selecting Jordan Tyson out of Arizona State, the wide receiver. You put him and Neighbors together. That's interesting. 3rd, you've got the Saints taking another quarterback. Last year, last draft, they took Shuck. And this year, this has them projecting to take Fernando Mendoza, Indiana, taking on Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. So the Saints, they want a top quarterback. They don't feel great that Chuck, he hasn't done enough to prevent them from taking another crack at it. I think this would be the right pick for them. 4, you got the Raiders. The Raiders. Shout out to Chris Berman. Taking quarterback Ty Simpson out of Alabama. Not big on Ty Simpson. 5, you got Cleveland taking Dante Moore out of Oregon. You've heard a lot of people feel good. I've known about Dante Moore for a long time, since he was in high school. Went to UCLA, did have an offensive line. A great thrower of the football. I would say that his best throw is better than any quarterback's best. Maybe Julian Saint at Ohio State. It's tough. But Dante Moore's, when he's on, the throws that he can make are very special. I think they're better than Mendoza's. They're better than Simpson's. It's just he does make some mistakes sometimes. You need to improve pre- and post-snap reads, that kind of stuff. 6, the Commanders, Ruben Bain out of Miami, the edge rusher. I think that he has the potential to be the bane of a lot of offenses' existences. 7, the Jets taking Caleb Downs, Ohio State. Caleb Downs, already draft eligible, huh? Transfer from Alabama, went to Ohio State. One of the best players in college football. Really, 2, 3. 8, you got the Cardinals taking Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame. And 9, we're finally here. The Los Angeles Rams taking offensive tackle Spencer Fano out of Utah. Hope I'm saying that right. Is it Fano? Is it Fano? We'll definitely do the legwork on this for sure. But either way, you got them taking a tackle. And Matthew Stafford's playing like an MVP. And you got no need for a quarterback. Because I mean, would you trade it for Mendoza or Moore or Simpson? No, those guys aren't special enough, I think, to be the answer for the Rams. So I don't think it's worth it. But a tackle, look, I've been trying to push for the Rams to take a true offensive tackle for years. And if this is the year to do it and use that top pick that's basically found money in that trade, I would not be against taking an offensive tackle. I really wouldn't. Underneath them, you got Francis Moaga from Miami, another tackle going to the Bengals. Jermod McCoy, cornerback, going to the Vikings out of LSU. So really, other interesting one is with Devontae Adams leaving, potentially, you could potentially get Carnell Tate out of Ohio State. Let's see how Carnell Tate's season finishes. But at Ohio State, you've got 2 number 1 receivers. You got Jeremiah Smith, you got Carnell Tate. And Carnell Tate has taken a leap. He's smooth. He's silky. Kind of gives you some Chris Olave vibes from Ohio State. But if the Rams offense is rolling and you want to get another receiver, hey, Mekhi Lemon from USC, another guy. Ted McMillan was really good for the Panthers. This has the Panthers taking Ted McMillan and taking Mekhi Lemon. So Mekhi Lemon, do you look for another play? I think that the fact that he works in the slot a lot, I think if you're the Rams, you kind of want a guy that's on the X on the outside. But I would not rule that out. The possibility of kind of going with that. A true guy you look at on the outside. So tackle, receiver, do you package picks to trade up to get a quarterback? Are any names available from current players? I still want to manifest Joe Burrow somehow, some way, but that's an early look at the 2026 NFL Draft. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.